Pastor McNeil, what are you doing up here? I don't know, I just do what I'm told. They told me I'm speaking today, I'm speaking today. Be nice if I could see you, though. We got any lights? Lights. Hey, there we go. No, shut them back up. No, I'm kidding. Wow, Matt and Sarah, you're moving up. Like people got here early and got your rows. Pretty soon you'll be right down here with the Janseks. Sarah's going, no. We're moving to a different section before that happens. Okay. Well, tonight's communion, let me give you an invitation back to communion. It's an important service. It's actually a command that we do communion services, and I always encourage you to do what God says. And He says this is a service we're supposed to have. It's also true that I'm speaking tonight, and I'd like to see you back. So why don't you come back tonight at 6 o'clock for communion. I'm going to be in the book of Habakkuk today. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to get there because some of you, the pages in your Bible stick back there. Where Habakkuk is, you find, Isaiah and Jeremiah and Daniel and Ezekiel and keep moving to the right. You'll go past Jonah and you'll come to a little book called Habakkuk, which is where I'm going to be this morning. But to kind of get us going, I thought we'd have a little quiz. You say a quiz? Yeah. Just to remind us, there's some things, you just kind of know. If you've been a while, how many of you have been in Shelby Road for 10 years or more? Let me see. Hey, lots of hands, most of the hands. You've been around for a long time. You should know this is kind of a quiz to get you started. You say it's a quiz about what? About Cindy, my wife. Are you ready? Now I'm gonna have a slide go up, and when I do, don't say the answer out loud. I'll read the question, then you all can answer out loud. That'll be fun. Here we go. First slide. True or false? Cindy plays the piano. Yes. See, this is very easy. It's a very easy quiz. Very easy. Slide number 2. Cindy, true or false? Cindy is afraid of mice. True. Terribly afraid of mice. If there's a mouse in the vicinity, she's on a table somewhere. On a counter. She's moving up in the world. Slide number 3. Cindy, true or false, Cindy loves pancakes. True. She can pack them away. Some of you remember when she had a pancake eating contest with Pastor Nate? She blew him away. Pastor David makes pancakes about the size of a medium-sized dinner plate, and he stacked 8 of them up. She cleaned them down. It didn't take her long. She went right straight through them. It's amazing. I was down there watching this while they were filming it. She and I are walking back to the office, and I said, "You could have eaten more, couldn't you?" She goes, "Oh, yeah." That's absolutely true. Slide number 4. Wait a second. I did not put that in there. I'm brave, but I'm not that brave. I did not do that. How many of you in this room know I'm technology? I'm challenged with tech. How many of you know that? You know I couldn't do this. I could not put this up there. Someone in the office did this without my knowledge. This isn't being streamed, is it? No, it's not being streamed. See, that's good. That's good because the people, you're not filming the screen right now, are you? Don't film the screen. Just filming me? That's good. The people out there don't even know. When they see this later in the week, they won't know what happened right here. And I want you to know, even though all the other slides were true, that does not say what this slide would be. You be very, very careful. Be very, very careful. Okay, I have more slides. So that was not me. Some of you don't believe that, but I didn't do that. I think maybe Susan stuck it in there or something. Well, maybe not Susan. I don't know. Here we go. Next slide. This is a bonus. These are bonus questions. These are things I think most of us know. This is not about Cindy, but I think we know it. Thanksgiving is always on what day of the week? Thursday. Of course it's on Thursday. We all know that. Next slide. Does Christmas come before or after New Year's? Before New Year's. I heard an after. What world do you live in? Christmas comes before New Year's. Here we go. Last one. Last one. Okay, now, I want you to think through this. How many of you think you know the answer? We're not saying it out loud, but how many of you think you know the answer? Let me see your hands. How many of you are very confident that you know the answer? Yeah, because there are some things you just know. Like, is Palm Sunday before or after Easter? Before. Would it surprise you that in a staff meeting, a pastor said to me, would this surprise you? True story. A pastor said to me, is Palm Sunday before or after Easter this year? I said, it's not only before Easter this year, it's before Easter every year. Wow. There are some things you just would expect the pastor to know. Now you say, is this a present pastor? It is. And they asked you, is Palm Sunday before or after Easter this year? I wasn't going to say who it is, but children in the room, if you could remind Pastor Josh all day today, Palm Sunday comes before Easter. Before Easter? I printed off sheets from 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, and put them on his desk so he would know. Adults in the room, you could text him and say, Palm Sunday is before Easter. Feel free to text. You say, well, of course, not during your sermon. I don't care when. Just blow up his phone, man. So he gets this down and he won't be asking me this again. Are you in Habakkuk? I gave you a lot of time. Come on now. We're in Habakkuk chapter 1. Habakkuk wrote at the time Jeremiah wrote. And Habakkuk wrote in Israel before they went into captivity to Babylon. Daniel wrote just after Habakkuk, and he was in Babylon. Now Habakkuk, he was in a tough time. I'm serious. It was a tough time in Israel. They were dark times. And he's trying to find God in the dark. That's where this series comes from. Finding God in the dark. I've been working on it for the last several months while we've been going through this pandemic. And I was thinking about how it relates to our life right now. How in our lives there are dark times and we have to find God in the dark. That's what Habakkuk's struggling with. Are you there? Here we go. The oracle that Habakkuk the prophet received. How long, O Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen? I'm praying, God, but you aren't listening to me. Or I cry out to you, violence. My world's a mess. Violence everywhere. But you don't save. You don't stop it. I'm praying, but you're doing nothing. He's totally frustrated. You can hear it. Why do you make me look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrong? Destruction and violence are before me. There is strife and conflict abounds. He does these couplets. Injustice and wrong. There's social oppression. The country's a mess. There's destruction and violence. He uses the word violence 6 times. 6 times he talks about violence. How violent our world is. Sometimes we think they're destroying the country we love. Strife and conflict. He's talking about interpersonal, constant hostility, aggression, lawsuits, quarrels, arguments. Just nasty upon nasty post. Just fills up our lives. He's saying, my world's a mess, God, and I'm praying and asking you to flip it around. It's not happening. Verse number 4, therefore the law, and he's talking about the law of God. He lives in Israel. It's a theocracy. It's a nation under God. It's different than a democracy. Therefore the law of God is paralyzed, and justice never prevails. The wicked hem in the righteous, and justice is perverted. He says it doesn't seem like it's working the way you intended it to be. Exactly. You look at this pandemic, and some of us are frustrated. Doesn't think how it should be. Habakkuk's unhappy, he's distressed, he's perplexed. But I like the word frustrated. He's frustrated with society, he's frustrated with the pandemic, he's frustrated with wearing masks. I went to a restaurant last night, and there were 6 of us and a baby, and they wouldn't let us sit at the same table. There were 4 tables, in my view, that had 8 chairs, but we couldn't sit there because the rule is you can only have 6. And that's a little frustrating to me. Would it be frustrating to any of you? Say, no, you just love all these rules, I know. So he prays, but it doesn't seem like God's responding. And we get to listen in and learn. Are you ready? You got your notes? Here we go. Number 1, our world can be a very frustrating place. Now, I'll just say truthfully, sometimes I get frustrated. I get frustrated with what people are doing. I get frustrated with what politicians are doing. I get frustrated with God, what God's not doing. Do any of you? Do any of you get frustrated? I know there's some perfect people in the room. There's always some perfect people. You don't get frustrated, I get that. But I think lots of us get frustrated. Let me see your hands if you get frustrated occasionally. Turn to your neighbor and say, sometimes I get frustrated. So he tells God this. He tells God, hey, I'm frustrated. And then we learn this. Number 2, God will love us even if we don't put on a happy face. I think some of us think God only loves us if we put on our happy face, but Habakkuk doesn't have on a happy face here. He says to God, why don't you do anything? When I pray to you, and you do nothing. That doesn't sound happy to me. How long are you going to wait before you do something? That doesn't sound like a happy prayer. But I think some of us think we have to always put on our happy Christian face. We can't just be honest. The truth is, sometimes our world is a very frustrating place. Sometimes our lives are very frustrating lives. And when that happens, we can talk to God and we can tell Him the truth. In fact, if we smile at God in prayer while we're hurting inside, then we dishonor the relationship. I want to say it again. If I smile at God when I'm hurting and frustrated, that dishonors the relationship I have with God. It makes it so it's not real. But we do get frustrated. We'd have to put on a happy face. God's big enough to handle our fears and our doubts and our frustrations. Isn't it true? He's big enough to handle it. We can just go to Him and say, I don't get it. What in the world are you doing? You say, well, I never say stuff like that to God. Well, I do. I do say it to God. Here's a truth we need to learn. Number 3, we can't let our frustrations turn into complaining. We need to turn them into prayers. Here's something we get wrong sometimes. When we're frustrated, we let that frustration mutate into complaining, which is sin. It's sin. Complaining about having to wear a mask is sin. There's no other word for it. We can't let our frustrations turn into complaining, which is common. We have to turn them into prayers. We need to stop complaining and pray our frustrations out to God. You say, it kind of sounds like he is complaining. Whatever it is, it's okay to do to God. Whatever he's doing right here, it's okay to do this to God. It's wrong to complain sideways, but it is okay to take our frustrations to God, and we should do more of that and less complaining, and we would honor God more. But here's the problem. Number 4. Prayer can be a very frustrating experience. You say, Pastor Man, you tell us we shouldn't complain, we should pray. Yes. But prayer can be frustrating? Yes, it can. In fact, that's what Habakkuk is struggling with. He's been praying, and nothing's happening. How long? How long do I pray and you do not listen? Sometimes I struggle with prayer. I do. I'm just telling you the truth. Just to make me feel better. Are there any other people out there? Do you struggle with prayer too? Let me see your hands. Okay, some of you didn't raise your hand. You're perfect. I get that. You don't struggle. Some people don't struggle. They never struggle with anything. Truly, they don't think they do. But I do. I struggle when I pray and nothing happens. You say, well, Pastor McNeil, that's not exactly how it is. It's how it feels. Doesn't it feel that way to you? Why is it like this? Well, here we go, in your notes. I just left you a blank. You got to fill them in. Sometimes it seems like God, number 1, isn't listening. That's why prayer is frustrating, because sometimes it seems like he isn't listening. You say, why do you say that? Because sometimes nothing happens. How long, O Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen, or cry to you violence, but you don't change the situation? Sometimes it seems like God isn't listening. Number 2, sometimes it seems like God doesn't care. He's indifferent. I mean, we're really struggling, and we pray, but it doesn't happen. Habakkuk's frustrated with this because it doesn't seem like God gives a flying fig about his situation. Whatever a flying fig would be. I don't know. But God doesn't care. Sometimes it seems like, number 3, God's annoyingly inconsistent. Like, this person prays that they get a job and they get one, and this person prays that they get a job and they don't. This person prays that their loved one who has COVID will live, and they do, and this person prays that their loved one with COVID will live, and they don't. This person prays that their child will come back and follow Jesus, and they do, and this person prays that their child will come back and live for Jesus, and they don't. Maybe that doesn't bother any of you. But when I'm the one that's getting the don'ts, it bothers me. He seems, if I can say it reverently, annoyingly inconsistent. Sometimes, number 4, it seems like God is absolutely inactive. Doing nothing. Okay. We live in a frustrating world, and we shouldn't complain, we should pray, but then we pray, and it doesn't seem to work sometimes. If we have faith the size of a mustard seed, we can say to this mountain, go hop into the sea. You see any mountain hopping lately? You say, well, no, I don't, and here's why. Because it's frustrating. You pray, and it doesn't seem to happen. And that's what Habakkuk's having, and here's what God responds. You know I stopped in verse 4. Here's verse 5. Look at the nations. Habakkuk, look at the nations and watch and be utterly amazed, for I'm going to do something in your days that you would not believe, even if you were told. Here we go, number 5. Here's what we have to hang on to. Here's the truth we need to hear this morning and hang on to in the midst of dark and frustrating times. God's always listening and always working. God is always listening and always working. So there's an obvious question right now, and you would all ask me, and I'm going to ask myself, why doesn't it seem like it? If God is always listening and always working, why doesn't it seem like it? And that's a great question. Glad you asked. I have some answers, and I left you a lot of room, but I have lots of answers, so write small. Why doesn't it seem like it's working? Why doesn't it seem like God is listening and always working? Here we go. Number 1, sometimes we complain more than we pray. Here's one of the answers. Why the system isn't working right? Because sometimes we're doing more complaining to people than we are praying to God. Do you think this is possible? I think it is possible. Number 2, second reason it doesn't seem like God is always listening and always working. Sometimes we're sinning. That's number 2. Sometimes we are sinning. Now, there are preachers who won't tell you this, and I know. In fact, I hear preachers say that God's going to answer your prayers anyway. Well, here's what God says. If I cherish sin in my heart, the Lord will not. That was kind of weak. If I cherish sin in my heart, the Lord will not. He will not hear. That's pretty clear. But your sins have separated between you and your God so that he will not hear. Psalm 66:18, Isaiah 59, 1 and 2. Those are pretty clear statements. It kind of works like this. Imagine you have a junior high daughter. Some of you can imagine this clearly because you have a junior high daughter. Maybe you've had a junior high daughter. It doesn't even actually have to be a daughter, but let's just say it is. You have a junior high daughter and you say to her, clean your room. You go upstairs where her room is, about 20 minutes later, and she's not cleaning. She's just laying on the bed. And that kind of warms your heart. And you say, hey, I said clean your room. Clean it, Lily. Oh, she's not in middle school. She's in high school. Sorry. I always try to bring her into every sermon. She likes it when I mention her name. Anyway, you find this kid on the bed and you say, hey, I said clean your room. You leave, about 20 minutes you come back. She's now playing a game. That warms your heart. You say, hey, I said clean that room. You come back in about 20 minutes, she's on her phone. And now, your blood is warmed up. You're hot. You say, I said, get off your backside, clean that room. She said, I will in just a second, but is there any chance I could get a new iPhone? Now, right there, is her chance good or bad? Bad. Here's why, because disobedience doesn't get more yeses. This is a truth. Disobedience to God does not get more yeses from God. This is a truth. Rebellion doesn't increase yeses. It doesn't work with a middle schooler. It doesn't work with God. Number 3. Sometimes it doesn't seem like God is listening and always working because sometimes we are self-reliant and we don't pray. We don't ask God for help facing the situation that we've got coming up at work today. We just don't ask. Well, then he doesn't answer. Of course. Number 4, sometimes it doesn't work because we're picky. You say, what do you mean picky? I mean, we only accept exactly what we ask for. Like prayer is kind of rubbing a magic lamp. God's a genie. We rub the magic lamp of prayer and God pops up and says, here, I'll give you 3 wishes, whatever you want. Prayer doesn't work like that. God's a person. Not only that, he's a father. Sometimes he says no. When he says no, it seems like he's not listening. Actually, he's not doing it because he said no. Turn to the person next to you and say, no is an answer. I prayed that Cindy and I wouldn't get COVID. We both got it, and God said no. After we got it, I prayed that we wouldn't have very severe symptoms. Cindy's weren't very severe, but mine were much more severe. And they were more severe because God said no. I prayed that they wouldn't last, that it would only last for a week or 10 days, and then it would go away, but it lasts for several months. And that happened because God said no. God was listening, and he was answering. I just didn't like the answer. Some Christian people prayed that Trump would never be elected, and he got elected, and here's the truth. God said no to your prayers, and it was an answer, and he was working. He was just doing something you didn't like. Some Christians prayed that Biden would never get elected, and when he did, they were very disappointed in God. But the truth is, in both cases, God answered their prayers no. He answered other Christians' prayers yes, by the way, which is another part of this. Sometimes Christians are praying opposite directions. Isn't that true? We know it's true in this room. Which leads me to number 5. Sometimes it doesn't seem like it's working because we're praying small, selfish prayers. Small, selfish prayers. Habakkuk was praying, and he had a concern, and the concern was right around himself, and he expected God to respond exactly as Habakkuk saw it. But the truth was, God's running the world. Do you see what he says to Habakkuk in chapter 1, verse 5? He says, Habakkuk, look at the nations. He says to him, don't you get this, Habakkuk? My interests are bigger than yours. Here we're praying, but God's interests are bigger than my interests and my family, and God's interests are bigger than the interests of Shelby Road, and God's interests are bigger than the interests of West Michigan, and God's interests are bigger than the interests of Michigan, and God's interests are bigger than the interests of the United States of America. And sometimes we've got an idea what we want God to do, and it's just about our life. But God's running the world. I'm praying that the weather will be good on Saturday because I have a picnic with my family. And farmers are praying that they'll get rain for their crops. I'm a Christian, and I'm praying. And Matt Waller's a Christian, and he's praying. And God's going to say no to one of us. Aren't you glad you don't have to decide which one? You say, well, I'd say no to you, Pastor Menil, because your picnic's not as important as his crops. I disagree. The truth is, there are millions of prayers going up all over the world, and God's running the whole world. And yes, he may say no to our prayer because he's doing something bigger. You think it's any accident we sang this morning, "You're bigger than I thought you were"? Sometimes our prayers are small and self-centered, but we have a God who's running the world. Number 6, sometimes it doesn't seem like God's listening and working because we get discouraged and quit praying. Part of the system of prayer is God wants us to keep praying over and over and over. You say, do you know why? Interestingly, He doesn't say why. If you find a place where He does, you can tell me. But I don't think in the Bible God says why He wants us to keep on praying, but He does say He does want us to pray and not to quit praying. To keep praying. Maybe to see how much it really matters to us. Maybe. But it doesn't say that in the Bible, but it clearly says we have to pray and keep on praying. And sometimes we get tired and we quit. If you want to see this in the Bible, read Luke 18. Read Luke 18. So, Habakkuk's frustrated with God. And how's he going to deal with this dark time, this frustrating time in his life when he's praying and it doesn't seem like it's working? What does he do? By the way, God comes and tells him then what he's going to do, and what he's going to do Habakkuk doesn't like at all. We talk about that another time. I'm interested, when God gets done speaking, how Habakkuk addresses him. Still got your Bible open? Verse 12. O Lord, are you not from everlasting, my God, my Holy One? We will not die. O Lord, you have appointed them to execute judgment. O Rock. Yeah, that's it. That's the last line in your notes this morning. God is our rock. He's our rock. And He wants us to hang on to the fact that He's doing something bigger than us. Look at the nations, He says, and watch and be utterly amazed. For I'm going to do something in your days that you will not believe, even if what you were told. God's doing something in our lives, and He's doing something in the United States of America, and it's bigger than we think, because He's bigger than we think. And we need to trust Him to do what's right, because He's God, and we're not. This is the rock we have to hang on to. That God is always listening and He is always working. Just sometimes His concerns are bigger than our own. Say, Pastor McNeil, I'm not sure you can take Habakkuk 1:5 and apply it to our lives today like you're doing. Well, read Acts 13:41 and see if Paul doesn't do it in his day, because he does. He takes that verse and says that applies directly to his day, and I'm telling you, Habakkuk 1:5 applies to our days. Look at the nations and be utterly amazed, because God's going to do something in your life, and in my life, and in our homes, in your homes, in our church, in other churches, in the United States of America. God's doing something, and He's listening to us, and we need to trust Him, because He's bigger than we think He is. Come on. We sing it. We sing it. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship You. I worship You. You are here, working in this place. I worship You. I worship You. Then there's that great line in there, right? Even when I don't see it, You're working. Even when I don't feel it, You're working. You never stop. You never stop working. Even when I don't feel it, You're working. Even when I don't see it, You're working. You never stop. You never stop working. Come on, we know those words. Your way maker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in my frustrating darkness. Can't believe the songwriter left that out. You are way maker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in my frustrating darkness, and I will hang on to the rock. Got to have something to hang on to in those frustrating, dark times in life. And here's what we'll do. We'll do it together. We'll hang on to the rock who's bigger than we think he is, who's always working even when we don't feel it and even when we don't see it. He's working and he never stops working, and we'll hang on to it. And we'll get in groups, small groups, and when somebody's struggling, we'll help them. That's why you get in a small group. So when you're struggling, hanging on to the rock, they can help you hang on to the rock. They can grab a hold of the rock and grab a hold of you. And we'll hang on to the rock that God is always listening and always working, even when we don't see it, even when we don't feel it. He's working, and he's doing something bigger than we could ever imagine. And he wants us to trust him. Let's stand together. Father, I pray that you will help us to put our faith in you. Father, let us not get discouraged when we pray and it doesn't seem like something's happening. Help us to trust that you're doing something behind the scenes bigger than us. Father, help us to trust that you're the God of all the world and you run this world and you're putting it all together and we can trust you. Father, help us to hang on to that rock-like truth in our lives. When we're struggling and frustrated, when our kids are struggling, Father, help us to hang on to this rock, that you're big enough to handle it. And we'll trust you. I pray you'll help us in Jesus' name. Amen.